up, everyone? Welcome to Normal America's show. So, anyone who's a regular viewer, I see Robert, TLS, I just gotta forewarn you, my computer is being immensely ornery right now. I scheduled this debate and I was not supposed to be at my work office this evening, but unfortunately, because coworkers had stuff come up, I had to be here. So normally I don't schedule any sort of debates on days when I'm not at my home office because of this junk computer. And so oftentimes what happens is if I'm trying to communicate with someone and have sources up and things like that, it overheats. If it overheats, here's the plan. I'm going to put a link to Pondering's channel up here. Please go watch it there. And then I will, I don't know. I'll try to record it. But I don't know that that'll work either. But if it's just on Pondering's channel, it's just on Pondering's channel. I mean, it is what it is. This is what it's like to have a real job. Sometimes things like this occur. So let's mute this.
Yeah.
So here is
Can you hear me?
Here is his channel. And the actual video. So if I anyone's here, now I haven't heard from Timcast yet. Anyone who's here, that's the link to Pondering's channel. I'm gonna try to record it. I don't know what's gonna happen. In fact, Pondering is doing this through Restream, which I use Restream. That's how you can see all the chats that are coming up there. But I've never used Restream as a program to do a debate. So he somehow does it that way. I didn't even know that was possible. I always just use Discord or StreamYards or Whereby. I've never used... so I have no idea how it's going to do with my computer. For some reason, StreamYards works remarkably well. It doesn't overheat my computer. It seems like Discord does. And I'm not so sure about Restream. Yeah, I already got all my... It'd be, at this point... So I got a folder in my home computer with probably 40 sources on Burisma alone. Obviously, I don't have that with me here. So I should put those all up on Discord or something so that I could reach them mobily. But, I didn't get them on my phone either, so I pulled up 3 or 4 that I thought would be most relevant. We'll see how it goes. Again, I think I would have done much better if I was at home. Everything's more organized, and I would actually have time to prepare. So I just literally clocked out 10 seconds before I started the stream here. So, a little disheveled, but that's okay. It's a topic I know quite well, so no excuses. I think I'll do quite well. We'll just see. Excuse me. If my computer could hold up. I think I'll hold up just fine. Trying to bookmark a couple things just in case. Just in case. Yeah, let's bookmark that too. And that looks good. Okay. What's the prompt? It's supposed to just be on Devon Archer's testimony. What do I expect? I expect he'll focus heavily on... This all come about because he said Devon Archer's testimony proves nothing. Now, first off, it doesn't prove nothing, and even if you are on the side of standing the Bidens, right? What it shows is that Hunter Biden was explicitly lobbying for foreign interest. He hasn't been charged for that yet, and he was using his father's name to do so. That's definitive. But that's the best that they could come up with. The best is, oh, no, this was just Hunter Biden. It's weird, too, because, like, today you can see Hunter Biden testified. We haven't seen the transcript yet. But you can see the Democrats that were in the room while he's testifying talking about how Hunter Biden's, like, this great guy and he has such grace. I mean, he was lobbying for hostile foreign interests that his father was telling us were corrupt oligarchs. And he didn't fill out the proper paperwork, and he was getting paid tons of money for it. And so they're still celebrating him. So that looks bad politically. As far as the investigative aspects, the impeachment aspects, the criminal aspects of it, what he'll rely on is saying there's no direct evidence that the testimony showed that money went directly into Biden's account. He'll focus heavily on the fact that Archer did testify that he was told by people on the board of Burisma that the firing of Victor Shokin was bad for Burisma, but of course that's what they said. We'll be able to dispute that. That won't be a problem. And then he'll rely heavily on when Archer says that he was in the room when Zlochevsky said to Hunter Biden, I want you to make a call, and then called his dad. He was later pushed back and said, well, I can't confirm it was his dad. And that's what he'll push back. But there won't be any offense. He'll just play defense. That's all he'll have. And I'm going to try to keep it as close to Burisma and Shokin and the Devon Archer testimony as possible. I also expect he'll object when I bring up things that are slightly of a broader scale, but not much. Because the context of Devon Archer's testimony being important is the greater surrounding story. And so we need to talk about the Burisma story in whole to be able to talk about that. Oh, there's one other thing I forgot to look up. Let me see here. Robnoerr. There we go. That's what I need. Okay. Stuff that. All right. One other thing. Let's see. Oh boy. Oh, jeez. I just realized something. Well, wait. This should work. Never mind. This. Let's take this out. Hide that. Okay. That should. Okay. Give me one sec. Tech stuff. Okay. All right. But that's what I expect. Let's see. Do that. This. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. All right. You're going to lose me visually here for a minute. Again, this is amateur hour because I'm not at home, so I'm having tech issues. And also, I've never used this platform that he's using. And he's having questions with how to do it as well. I don't know that he's ever had anyone on to debate on his channel. I don't know why we don't just do it through a Discord call, but not my call, I guess. So give me a second here. We'll see what we can do. Let's see if this is working. There we go. I use Restream to splice to multiple channels, but then I just use that stream key through OBS. That's what I use. And then if I want to debate someone at this point, I usually use Whereby. Lately, I've just been using Discord, especially when I'm not at home. So he wants to use Restream, which I use Restream, but never to set up a debate or anything. All right, you're going to lose me visually for a second. Let's see if we can get rolling here. All right. Well. No, wrong camera. What? Okay, audio. Hope that works. I don't know. We'll see how it works. Actually, I pay for Restream, so if this works, maybe it's something I'll use in the future. Unless he pays for it more than me? I don't know.
Okay. Roberto, can you hear me, sir?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can, but why can't I pull you? Okay, there you are. So, just so you know, I've got a way figured out where you and I can do the Discord call if you'd prefer that, because I don't know if you can see your chat, and I don't want to deprive you of that.
Oh,
like mods and stuff.
Two things. One, I can see my. I go through OBS, so it doesn't matter. I could.
Oh shit!
I go through OBS,
sorry.
so it's all right. I could do whatever. If you want to do it through Discord, the only problem.
No, this is fine.
Okay.
This is fine. If it's not screwing you over at all.
The only thing is, on my screen, it will now show your chat and my chat, which I guess isn't a big deal. I guess I don't care.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I'll
literally be
talking, Rob.
I'll literally be screen sharing what you see here. That's what will show up on my channel.
Okay, well, listen, it's up to you. If you would prefer it to be yours, I totally get it, which is why I was looking for a solution. So I tested it before you got here with a buddy where you and I can do a Discord call, and they'll be able to hear you. They won't be able to see you. They'll be able to see and hear me and hear you, and your chat will be able to see and hear you your way.
This is fine. I don't mind it at all. This is no problem.
Perfect. Okay, hang on 1 second. I'm going to grab a water. I'm still struggling with a cough here, so you're going to hear me like hack up a lung with the bubonic plague, and then we'll jump into it. So I'll be right back, and you can, you all can have the pleasure of robnoerr, the ultimate conservative, Joe Biden crusader, right? So the guy who is waging war against Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. He is the final boss of conservative debate bros in the Twitch poll space. You know you are. I'll be right back.
See, that already I can see my opponent's in trouble here, you Pondering fans. And here's why, because that's not who I am. I actually don't give two shits about Joe Biden or Hunter Biden, nor do I really care about Donald Trump. I know everyone in the left-wing sphere thinks that's the case, but it's not true. I care about the institutions that I view as corrupt. So I care more about institutions like the FBI, the CIA, institutions like our mainstream media, engaging what I consider a two-tiered system. I think that they will exist long after individual politicians or individual members of those institutions, and we need to fix those before we could have debates on sort of substantive issues such as the border, such as foreign policy, etc. Because right now, I feel because of that corruption, our voice doesn't matter. They put their thumbs on the scale of elections, and scale sort of our political narrative. And for me, it's a precursor solving that to make sure that we have a voice. I don't even consider myself the most conservative. It's unfortunate that I'm one of the best conservative debaters for conservatives because I'm not all that conservative. I'm probably closer to a libertarian than most conservatives would like. For example, I have no problem with things like gay marriage. Basically, I want the government to leave me alone most of the time, and I think a lot of traditional conservatives, I'm not saying it makes them bad people, but they want government involved more in our social life more than I would be comfortable with most times, though I will admit I'm less libertarian than I used to be. But, yeah. I think a slight misnomer to say that I'm just a Biden hater or something like that. I'm trying to set it up so my chat and your chats are, so my channel could see sort of both of them, and then we could compare. I bet mine has more curse words, is my guess.
Man, I don't know. We'll see. I feel like if anybody is going to bring out curse words in my chat, it will be you, my man, which is a compliment.
Yeah,
I'm just going to provoke him.
Where's your boy at? Is he going to help you tonight?
Who's my boy? Destiny or Pisco?
No. Pisco. You're his little... have you ever seen the movie Christmas Story? It's one of my favorite Christmas movies. Yeah. You know the bully character?
With you shoot your eye out, kid?
Yeah. You got the bully character, and then he's got his little toady friend. That's you! You're the toady guy. You're the toady guy.
That's fair.
Which is funny because you're far outpacing Pisco as far as viewership now. You're crushing me. Which I will have to say before we get started, from honest to goodness, I do mean this. I think your politics are dog shit, but I think you've been working very hard, and you deserve to get a bigger reach, and I'm very happy for you, and I hope it works out for you, and I hope it's something. I don't know if it's your career or if it's a hobby, but whatever you want out of it, I hope you're getting out of it.
So I just went full time 2 weeks ago, or not this past Friday, but a week ago on Friday. So it's been good, man, but it's been the grind. Now, obviously, you're married with kids, so our situations are different. I've got a girlfriend, but no kids. I work remotely, or used to work remotely, so I had more time to kind of grind at this, but it really is a grind. I heard that you're going to be going on Tim Pool.
That's the plan. So it was supposed to be March 1st. It's going to be on his daytime show, and so it's more of, he likes to have multiple guests, so I think they want me to debate someone, and they were hoping for some bigger name people for me to debate, and unfortunately there's been scheduling conflicts, so it looks like that's going to be put off. It was supposed to be March 1st, now it's going to be March 15th, but it might get pushed off until early April if they can't find the appropriate people. So I know they didn't, I don't know, I probably shouldn't say anything. They wanted to get new blood on, but like bigger people, so they were trying to get like the Krasensteins or Cenk or someone like that, but
Why not like Steven or Vosh?
I wouldn't want to debate Vosh. I really want to debate Vosh, but I'd like for him to stew in his little scandal here. And so I feel like if he was on there, we wouldn't be talking. I don't really have anything to say about alleged interest of Vosh on that level. And I'm afraid that that's what the topic would generate to that. And I would just have to sit there and say, I have nothing to say. I don't care. Destiny, I'd love to debate, and I recommended that. But I think they're trying to get a diverse cast of left-wingers. They feel like they've had Destiny many times. But maybe it will be Destiny. I personally reached out to Destiny and asked if he would be interested, and he said to keep him posted. So I would love to debate Destiny on there. So we'll see what happens. It's not up to. And here's the other thing, and maybe you'll realize. You'll probably get invites as you grow to other shows. If you're streaming or something like this, you always have to remember this. Be humble and understand that we're up and comers. Like, am I really going to get upset if they're like, schedule me March 1st, and then they're like, oh, sorry, we can't have you on because Matt Gaetz is coming on, or Don Jr.
Yeah, you really have no leverage, or you're not in a position to bitch about it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm not upset at all. I understand how it works. And if you've ever set up debates or something, scheduling people is a nightmare. So I totally get it. For me, I hope I have a little time in advance because I do home health care. And like this week, I was supposed to be at my home office. I'm not. I just clocked out right before we came on because when you do home health care, if someone calls off, it's not like the factory where you could not show up. I have to be here until someone shows up. So it doesn't matter how much I protest. It is what it is. So I can't just. In Tim Pool's the type of show you have to be there in person, so it'll be about a 4.5 hour drive for me. I can't just pick up and leave and tell my work like, sorry, I'm not coming in today. So hopefully they can schedule me a little in advance.
Yeah. So, well, good luck with that.
Thanks.
So again, I'm struggling with basically, I feel like tuberculosis. I've had a persistent cough for a couple of weeks. Maybe as a home healthcare worker, you can diagnose me.
I don't do that. Trust me. My job requires not even a GED. So I have a master's degree, but I don't do healthcare in the sense that like I'm diagnosing stuff. I'm basically a live-in aid for people with developmental disabilities like autism. So I'm not making any medical decisions, I assure you.
Gotcha. Well, it's definitely, it's fascinating then, because obviously I imagine that would require quite a bit of empathy and compassion, and yet the debate bro aspect of me, you can be pretty ruthless. And so I want to prepare the chat here. So
I find I reciprocate energy.
Right. No, and listen, there's nothing wrong with that because I love the banter. So for those of you who are watching from my audience, again, some of you know Rob because you're from DGG. There's an overlap there. But for those of you who don't, Rob, would you introduce yourself in terms of what your politics are? And I'm going to do the same with your chat for those who don't know me.
Yeah, so I'm Rob Noerr. I've lived in rural Pennsylvania my whole life. Everyone I know is a blue collar worker, probably Red Wing, but 90% of the people I know aren't political, or weren't at least. I went off to university and did policy debate in college, which is the left of the left. And so that's where I got an interest in debate. I started streaming. I started like posting on blogs and stuff, but started streaming really, I think, around 2017. And my reasoning was I didn't feel anyone spoke up for people in rural America. So I do consider myself a libertarian leaning conservative, but more than anything, I'm a populist whose primary focus is on corruption in the institutions that I think are a two-tiered system that are entrenching an establishment that means that voices like all of ours aren't heard.
Okay, fair enough. So you would say that your primary like political mission, even more so than policy, is just the general mission towards anti-corruption. Okay.
Yes.
And I assume that, as far as you're concerned, that knows no parties, right? That's corruption for the Democrats, corruption for the Republicans, even if you think corruption is more prevalent on one side.
Yes.
Fair enough. So for me, for Rob's audience, my name is Josiah, aka Pondering Politics. I'm an unapologetically partisan progressive Democrat. I think that the Republican Party is collectively an authoritarian cult of personality with no limiting principle. I think the Democrats, for all their faults, I think that they're by far the better option with respect to policy and record and position and things like that. So I want to see them succeed. I also believe in matching energy, or at least reserving the right to, and kind of to that end in terms of electoral politics. I'd like to see Democrats take more of a page out of the Republican playbook and be more ruthless electorally. And I'm hoping that for a blue wave in 2024. But that's me. You can find me at youtube.com/@ponderingpolitics. So in terms of what we wanted to talk about, I know that we said on Twitter that it was specifically going to be about Devon Archer. Okay. Now, can you, for the audience, say who Devon Archer is and what your position is on his testimony? Kind of like give your perspective on it. And if I have any disagreement on it, obviously I'll challenge you there. But
so Devon Archer is this businessman who is friends with Hunter Biden. And basically Devon Archer starts this business where he brings Hunter Biden on board, where they're sort of trying to get investments for like venture capitalists. So they're going around the world. The way he runs into Burisma, if you don't know anything about this story, Burisma is this gas company in Ukraine that's ran by, this isn't my words, this is the Obama-Biden administration, a corrupt pro-Russian oligarch named Zlochevsky. This dude's been in trouble with the law and accused of things by Western nations for quite some time. So basically Devon Archer goes over to meet Zlochevsky for one of these business ventures, and Zlochevsky's like, forget about all that. How would you like to be a member of Burisma? How would you like to be on the board? Would you like to talk to the former president of Poland? He's on the board. Devon Archer goes, talks to him, agrees to come on the board. They originally hire Hunter Biden on his council, but then in, I believe, April of 2014, they actually hired Hunter Biden to the board, in which seems pretty evident from almost everyone's testimony. That was their ultimate goal. They went through Archer to get to Hunter Biden because they wanted a Biden because they thought it would help them.
Okay, and in terms of the testimony that he provided, so to put this in context, and again, you tell me before you, because I want to set it up as far as like the connection to the Biden impeachment inquiry. And again, let me know if you quibble with this. So obviously, since January 2023, when Republicans took the majority in the House of Representatives, one of their foremost political missions has been to try to impeach President Biden. And Devon Archer, in his capacity as a business acquaintance, or excuse me, a business associate and a longtime acquaintance of Hunter Biden, was pitched in the media as going to provide the smoking gun. He was going to be a decisive witness against Hunter Biden and ultimately, by connection, Joe Biden. Would you agree with that that was how it was hyped up?
Well, I don't disagree with the section you're talking about. I think it starts before this, though, because I think that the reason this became a story in the first place was because of the first impeachment of Donald Trump. So that's when all of this story started to become in the public eye, which was that they impeached.
No, sure, to be sure, but I mean in terms of because we're going to be talking about the testimony itself, but I just wanted to establish like you laid a pretty good like setup of who Devon Archer is relative to Hunter Biden, but his significance to the Joe Biden impeachment inquiry, which is the context for the testimony. I was just trying to bridge.
He was testifying in front of the impeachment committee, but I just want to stress, when I talked about this, it was well before any impeachment inquiry, and the reason was, to me, it was a legitimate defense in the impeachment of Donald Trump to say when he's talking to Zelensky and he's asking about this prosecutor that got fired by the name of Victor Shokin, if there was potential malfeasance there, there's no reason to impeach Trump. Trump as president, as the executive, is allowed to look into potential crimes that involved billions of U.S. tax dollars. And so that's where this story begins. It's not that the Republicans were trying to weaponize this story to go after Biden. It's that the Democrats weaponized this to go after Trump and impeach him over nothing. That's where this story started. And then once the facts started to come out, that was like, wait a minute, actually there's a lot here that should have been investigated. Then they cried foul and said, this is just them trying to do what we did to them. As always, what you'll see is Democrats will be upset that Republicans might potentially do to them what they've been doing to Republicans. So I disagree with your framing of it. I don't think this was initially a get Joe Biden thing. It was a response to...
No. I'm talking about the impeachment inquiry itself began in 2023.
Yes, that's true.
Okay. So anyway, so that's the bridge to it. I don't want to relitigate the impeachments of Donald Trump. Otherwise, we're going to be here well past 90 minutes. So then the impeachment, the testimony of Devon Archer occurs. It's done behind closed doors. The transcript is eventually released. With respect to the impeachment effort against President Biden, what is your take of the Devon Archer testimony? Do you think it's damning? Do you think it's a nothing burger? Do you think it's somewhere in between? Do you think Republicans overhyped it? What's your assessment of it? And I'll give you mine.
Okay, so first off, looking at it through the lens of purely impeachment isn't the right way to look at it. When you're looking at, I don't really care about Joe Biden. I care about a double standard in our institutions such as the FBI. And so we could look and say, is it impeachable? That's a difficult question because impeachment's political. You don't even have to prove a crime. So you could say the mere fact that we know definitively that Joe Biden lied about having contacts with his business people, theoretically, people could say, well, that's impeachable. We should impeach him. So I don't know the utility of talking about that. If you like, I could give you the four major things that I saw.
Sure, yeah.
This testimony...
I will say before you give your four major things, I agree with you that impeachment is it's not criminal prosecution, right? So the standard of evidence is considerably lower. Now the standard is supposed to be treason, bribery, high crimes, and misdemeanors. But what's a high crime and misdemeanor, right? So to your point, you can get flexible. Whoever the impeaching party is can get a bit creative. So go ahead and give your four things.
And I know, we're now going to see the Supreme Court just granted cert. Can the president, even after he's president, be charged with a crime? So that, if it had to be a crime, you would have this absurd sort of paradoxical argument, but the president can't commit a crime while he's president. And so therefore, how could you ever impeach? So clearly when they say high crimes and misdemeanors, it's in the judgment of political people. So even if me and you could argue, technically that's not a crime, it could still be impeachable if that's
agreed. Yeah, it's just simply not a criminal. It's not a criminal standard. I completely agree. Be it Biden, Trump, or whoever else. Completely agree. So go ahead and give your four things.
Okay, so what Devon Archer's testimony showed us was, I'll be brief about all of them. One, that Biden was the brand, that's how they were making money by Joe Biden being there. Second, that Biden met with Vadim and other people. Vadim was sort of the second in command at Burisma.
Corporate secretary.
Right. Yeah. So he met with him and met with many other business leaders involved in Rosemont Seneca and with Archer and Biden's business, and was on phone calls with him all the time in front of these business leaders. Third, that Hunter Zolchevsky told Hunter Biden one evening that they were at the Four Seasons, I'm under pressure from Ukrainian government investigations. Call your dad. Or you didn't say, I'm sorry, call. I want you to make a call. Then Devon Archer left, and he said that a call was made, and his assumption is that call was to his father, to Joe Biden. Then a few short days after that, we know that's when Joe Biden came up with the quid pro quo to force the firing of Viktor Shokin, the Ukrainian prosecutor who was investigating Hunter Biden's company. And the fourth is that this testimony, and this is the most damning thing, I went from least to most damning, and I'll be interested to get your take on this. The defense of Joe Biden's quid pro quo, you tell me if I'm wrong. This is the primary defense. That firing Viktor Shokin, forcing the firing with $1 billion of your tax dollars of the prosecutor looking into his son's company wasn't a big deal because that prosecutor wasn't really investigating. Correct? That's the argument.
That is part of the argument.
Well, that's the major part of the argument. Because you would agree, a president or a vice president or someone in an executive branch using your tax dollars to force the firing of a prosecutor looking into their family member is really bad.
So I would agree with you that simply that trying to influence foreign policy simply to benefit a member of your family, yes, that is corrupt no matter who does it. But I'll give you my take on the situation when you're done with yours.
Okay, so this is the last thing. Despite the fact for years we were told that there was no Ukrainian government investigations, Devon Archer testified that the reason Zlochevsky asked Hunter to make this call was because he was under pressure from, quote, Ukrainian government investigations. And so that was the biggest bombshell in this testimony, that the defense that the Biden administration and Biden defenders had given all along, that actually there was no investigations from the prosecutor general or from the Ukrainian government into Zlochevsky, was a lie. And then, of course, we know the end result, which you can't dispute. The firing of Viktor Shokin ended up being an incredible benefit to Burisma and to Zlochevsky and to Hunter Biden's company, because the new guy came in and within 8 months dropped the investigation completely, which Zlochevsky was allowed to come back to Ukraine because he was basically exiled, or by choice, he's self-exiled. He came back, celebrated, and started to make a bunch of money again. Those are the four things.
Gotcha. So my take of the situation is this. So I think that the Devon Archer testimony is a nothing burger, certainly with respect to impeachment. And maybe that's something, I know you said that you don't look at it quite through the lens of impeachment, that it's a broader issue for you with respect to your perception of double standards. And that's fine. And maybe we can agree on the impeachment thing, or maybe not. Well, let me ask you this. Do you think Devon Archer's testimony is damning with respect to impeaching Biden?
Yes. Because I would impeach, I'll just say real quickly, I would impeach because Biden lied about his contacts and because he did this quid pro quo, and now we have evidence that Zlochevsky wanted this guy gone, or he knew that there was Ukrainian government investigation. So I would say that I wouldn't say that this alone makes it impeachable, but I think it far moves the bar there. There's other things that I would impeach him for as well. But.
Sure. Okay. So here's my take on it. To me, the Devon Archer testimony is truly a nothing burger for a couple of reasons. Number one, so again, Devon Archer, a longtime acquaintance and business associate of Hunter Biden. He's familiar with Vadim and Mykola Zlochevsky. He's a guy who's in the know. He says, number one, that Hunter Biden, as far as he's concerned, that the interest that Burisma had in him was justified because he was an attorney, he was a lobbyist, he was somebody with relevant expertise. He worked for major law firms who also were able to lend their clout to Burisma and to PR and things of that nature, number one. Number two, the times that he witnessed Joe Biden and Hunter Biden interact with one another, he said that there was never any damning exchanges, that there was never discussion of business, there was never any sort of attempt at leveraging influence. He has no evidence that Joe Biden was working with Hunter Biden to exploit the Biden family name. He actually said that it was important for Hunter, in his estimation, to be very fastidious about the law and not breaking the law. The situation with the firing Viktor Shokin, to me, the timeline doesn't work right for a few reasons. Number one, even if we grant all the premises that phone call actually happened, it happened as described by Devon Archer, and that's he's under the pains and penalties of perjury, right? So if he lies during those congressional questions, he'll suffer consequences. So it's fair to take him at face value. But the timeline doesn't work because that trip that then Vice President Biden was supposed to take to Ukraine to pressure the Ukrainian government to make major reforms and to oust Shokin, that was planned weeks in advance before the phone call in early December. So to me, the timeline doesn't work. To say nothing of the fact that the de jure, the official on-paper investigation of Burisma, concerned a timeline that predated Hunter Biden in the first place, right? So it's not like Hunter Biden was in any way implicated by Shokin's on-paper investigations. And there's also at least some evidence to indicate that Shokin wasn't investigating. The fact that I think there were, I can't remember how many millions, 23 million pounds or something like that were unfrozen in 2016 by the British because Shokin wasn't providing evidence against Burisma, so the British could no longer keep those assets frozen. So from Archer's testimony, I would agree that there's some evidence that Vadim and Mykola at least felt or said that they were under pressure from the Ukrainian government, and perhaps you could say that that's Shokin himself. But Archer also testifies that he was told by affiliates of Burisma that Shokin remaining in power would be good for them. So again, there's mixed testimony, but at the end of the day, Archer says that he never heard anything damning from Joe Biden. When, as a matter of fact, at the very end, Dan Goldman asks him, do you agree with this assessment of Joe Biden that he never influenced foreign policy corruptly and that he had no connection to Hunter Biden's business ventures? And Archer says, yeah, I would not dispute that at all. Plus the brand thing, he says Joe Biden's the brand, but then later on he says, well, Joe Biden is part of the brand, not the brand itself. So that's my take on it. To me, it's a nothing burger.
So first off, most of what you said, even if I was to concede, it doesn't dispute any of the things that I said. Let's use what I would consider possibly the two best defenses that you have here, and then we'll roll back. So the idea that Devon Archer said, well, I never heard Joe Biden change his policy because of this. Correct? That's what you're saying. And he said that under penalty of perjury.
That is one of the things he said,
Right.
yeah, that he has no evidence that Joe Biden changed policy or changed behavior or conduct to benefit Hunter.
Him having no evidence of that doesn't mean that it didn't occur. So it's not like that this is dispositive that sort of thing could happen. And it makes sense because when you listen to Devon Archer, both in this and then in interviews he's given afterwards, explain what his situation was, he was brought on to be someone who was geared towards more financial type stuff, as you admitted, right? That's why he claims that he was brought on, right? Why would you intentionally tell everyone in your organization if you're like offering corrupt bribes to officials in powerful countries across the world? You wouldn't. They're going to keep as few people as possible in this loop. And Devon Archer admits, he even admits, you could tell not just by what he's saying in this testimony, but also in interviews he's given afterwards, he left the room when they were like, okay, it's time to make that call. That's not the sort of thing he was involved with. He wasn't there.
Yeah, but Rob, surely you would agree. I mean, I agree that it's not necessarily dispositive. I don't dispute that. I'm not saying that this exonerates Biden, but at the end of the day, you and Republicans are making a claim for which you need to provide evidence, and Devon Archer does not provide evidence of Joe Biden's corruption.
Sure he does, but I outlined the four. He showed that it was Biden's brand, or that it was the Biden brand. He showed
That's not what he said, though. He said it at one point, Rob, but with all due respect, you've seen the transcripts where he goes back and says DC is the brand. And Joe Biden was a major component of it, to be sure. But Archer was very quick, and I suppose he repeated himself multiple times to emphasize that Joe Biden himself was not the brand. And even if Joe Biden was the brand, as we saw later on in the testimony, Hunter Biden wanting to convince Burisma officials and whoever was interacting with him that he may have some influence over his father is not proof that he had influence over his father, especially when he told Archer and otherwise, hey, listen, I have no control over my dad's conduct or activity. So how do you square these things?
Well, because, this part of it, saying that Biden was the brand, isn't necessarily saying that this is proof that Joe Biden was involved with it. But why Hunter... Are you disputing this, that the testimony of Devon Archer and just what intuitively makes sense and testimony of people we've seen, name starts with a G that just testified here recently. The reason that Hunter Biden got hired wasn't his expertise in Ukrainian oil acquisition or gas acquisition. It's because he was the vice president's son. And that Hunter and James Biden were going around selling the brand. Now, that doesn't mean on its own that Joe Biden had access. For example, let's say that I become president. I have two brothers and a sister. They could be going out there against my knowledge and saying, hey, the president's my brother. Maybe you should hire me. The brand is the name. Biden is the brand. That doesn't mean that Joe was directly involved.
But again, I dispute that. With respect, I dispute that. And if you want me to wait, that's fine. But I dispute that characterization because Biden, he says, was part of the brand. If you cap basically the transcript at like page 30, then yeah, I would agree with you. But as he goes on, he clarifies, okay, listen, Joe Biden was not the brand. Joe Biden was the biggest part of the Biden component of the brand. It's a subset of a subset. I'm not saying that it's not relevant, but I think you're being very reductive when you say Joe Biden was the brand because that's not what Devon Archer said.
I completely disagree. For example, they had former, I forget what his title was, but he was former Beretta was one of those guys. He was on the Atlantic Council, and then he was formerly an attorney general, I think. They had certainly many people just from D.C. The reason they wanted specifically Hunter Biden was because he was a Biden, and they were able to leverage that. We could disagree. I think it's self-evident, and it's also evident from the testimony of Hunter Biden where he talks, or of...
Well, can I ask you this? Because again, I'm not certainly the last name was a major component. Archer testifies to that himself. Right. I will never dispute that. You would agree that it's not the only component, right? And you would agree that Archer says specifically that in his testimony, that it was also corporate governance, that it was his legal background, that it was also his affiliation with like Boies Scheller and Blue Star Strategies and various DC lobbying firms. And it was his work in the past on such things. Like Devon Archer himself is not exactly like an expert in Ukrainian energy from what I recall. So you would agree that it's not just the Biden last name, right?
What you're suggesting could be said of any sort of nepotism ever, right? You could say,
I understand.
Well, he speaks English, so that's an asset. So it's not in totality. Let me just finish this. It is. Sure. I will just ask you as blatantly as possible. Do you think Hunter Biden would have been sought out by them if his father wasn't a prominent politician?
I don't think he was sought out by him. My understanding was it was Archer who brought Hunter Biden in as counsel for 2 months. Then during those 2 months, he established a relationship with Vadim and Mykola Zlochevsky, and then they brought him on board as literally as a member of the board. It wasn't like they went hunting for Hunter Biden unless you have evidence to the contrary.
I mean, I'm not going to belabor the point anymore, but it's clear, again, in interviews you see, I'm not so sure if he says it specifically in the transcript, but in interviews, that's when Devon Archer realized, like, oh shit. We're in too deep. Now they've just put the vice president's son as board of directors. It's clear that Devon Archer thinks they got this dude. They sought him out because he was the vice president's son. Nonetheless, the brand portion of it's just one part. I think that's the least important part that this showed. It also shows that Biden lied about meeting. He said he never met any of the business associates. That's a lie. Devon Archer shows that. Shows that he was on phone calls with them. Shows we know from this testimony and elsewhere that he personally met with people like Vadim and other people.
Can you remind me just real quick, can you send me a link if possible? I know famously that Joe Biden said that he had nothing to do. I think he even said it to Peter Doocy. He's like, I had nothing to do with my son's business dealings. He got pretty testy about that. Did he ever say that he never encountered elements or business associates of Hunter Biden?
I'll try to find it and I'll try to send you.
That's fine. And you don't have to do it now in real time. You can come back and send that shit to me.
So that's the second point. The third point is that Hunter was told to call back home, which Devon Archer assumes that was his father. And then he called. You say that the timeline doesn't make sense. So let's talk about that for a second. Just because this meeting was pre-planned, it doesn't mean that this wouldn't be important. I don't understand this timeline argument whatsoever. So let's do a little hypothetical. Let's say you're a corrupt oligarch and you're trying to bribe an official, right? And let's say that you know that official is coming to your country and he's going to talk to leaders in your country, right? Do you think that you would have an incentive, like a mere 5 days before that travel arrangement began, to actually say, I want you to call back home and make sure this is all going good?
If I were brazen enough, sure. But again, you need to provide evidence of that. This is the problem. This is my argument as to why the timeline doesn't work. Because my understanding of your argument, again, correct me if I'm wrong, is the phone call was made in early December from Hunter Biden to DC. It is inferred that is to Joe Biden. Then 5 days later, Joe Biden travels to Ukraine and issues strong demands for reform in the Ukrainian Attorney General's office or Prosecutor General's office. Ergo, one can assume or one should infer that the phone call influenced Joe Biden's actions. The reason that doesn't work for me is that we have evidence that the actions that Joe Biden took in mid or early December, I think it was like 8th or 9th, were planned weeks in advance. We have the contemporary emails and the memorandum from the State Department in which, like in mid-November, they're like, Mr. Vice President, when you go to Ukraine, you're going to bitch at them for the corruption in their Prosecutor General's office. You're going to demand reform, et cetera, and so forth. So I'm asking you, since you made the claim, what evidence you have? Because I'll say this. In the absence of contemporaneous emails and whatever to the contrary, I would be much more amenable. I don't think it'd still be proof, but I would be much more amenable to the idea that Hunter Biden calls DC, assume it's his father. 5 days later, his father does something which you could argue benefits Hunter Biden's company. I think that's a more persuasive argument in the absence of proof that Biden's actions were set in stone weeks in advance.
Did you have this amount of charitability when it came to impeachments of Trump? Did you say, if there is a hypothetical explanation, even if it looks like smoke, if there's any potential hypothetical explanation, well, then that proves that it doesn't make sense, and absent of 100% proof means that it's not impeachable and it's a nothing burger. Did you have that amount of charitability?
So, Rob, without relitigating, and we're not going to go off on a gazillion tangents,
We don't have
but I
to.
will
I'm
say
asking
this.
a
Well,
simple
wait a minute.
question.
Let's use the first impeachment of Donald Trump as an example. Let's say that there was, I don't know, contemporaneous evidence that prior to the phone call, the infamous perfect phone call that Trump made to Zelensky, that Donald Trump had a genuine anti-corruption interest in Ukraine. It wasn't about the Bidens. If there was basically some sort of exculpatory evidence in advance, then I would be much less likely to infer sinister intent. The problem why this doesn't work is not only does that evidence not exist, but number two, Trump's phone call was specifically about Joe Biden. It wasn't even just anti-corruption in general. It wasn't like, hey, you listen, you got a lot of corruption there in Ukraine. You guys need to clean it up. It was specifically about the Bidens. So I think it's an apples and oranges comparison.
Okay, it's not, right? And let me explain.
Okay.
So first off, you say, we'll get to the overarching picture here in a second, but what you're saying is that the reason that this doesn't raise any red flags is because there was a State Department memo, I believe in November, that said when you eventually travel, you should mention corruption.
I think you're being pretty reductive. It was like hit it hard, demand reforms, et cetera, and so forth.
Did that memo say the aid that we've agreed to give, guaranteeing this IMF loan for $1 billion, we want you to offer a quid pro quo unless they fire this specific prosecutor? Did it say that?
No, the memorandum does not mention leveraging aid.
Okay, and we also have, I can send you the video afterwards if you want. We had someone that was on the plane with Biden as he's flying over that says that it was Biden himself that came up with the idea of the quid pro quo on the plane ride. That would be post the phone call. But no one else. Can you show me any record, evidence? Real quick, can you show me any record of anyone in the State Department contemporaneously before Biden issued the quid pro quo recommending that we issue this quid pro quo?
So I don't know what the date was, but don't we have evidence from, I think, George Kent, State Department official, who actually said it was somebody else who came up with the idea to leverage the congressional aid? I'm almost certain that that's the case.
What happens is this. You had a bunch of people post hoc say, yeah, we were talking about that, but no one's shown any contemporaneous proof.
Wait, what do you mean post hoc about it? No, are you talking about leveraging the aid or insisting on changes to the prosecutor general's office?
When it comes to the quid pro quo and the ousting of Victor Shokin, we have a lot of people that said afterwards, like George Kent, yeah, in fact, when I've debated other people in this, they've said this. They started having discussions in April of 2015 about getting rid of Victor Shokin. That would be only like 2 months after he was in office. It makes no sense. So people have said this, but all of these meetings are going on. The only evidence that we find from European groups, from State Department memos, none of them ever suggest firing Victor Shokin until the November memo mentions corruption, but it doesn't mention any sort of quid pro quo. Then we have people after the quid pro quo, and after it becomes a big story, because you're downplaying the significance of this. The idea that we had a vice president use your tax dollars to force the firing of a prosecutor looking into his son's company is insane. And the onus
I'm sorry,
should be...
real quick. Do you want this through Twitter DMs or do you want it through Discord?
Twitter DM will work.
Okay, cool. I don't know if it goes straight to the page, but look at... let me see here. 1 second.
So,
sorry, continue talking.
Yeah,
keep talking.
So when we have that situation, it warrants an immediate investigation. The appearance of a conflict of interest is so significant. On its own right, that would be impeachable. Biden should have been impeached at the time. And he should understand that he should not have been involved in this situation. If it's truly legitimate that it had nothing to do with his son, he shouldn't have been involved in any way, what shape, or form. And what you're saying is, we have now more specific evidence that days before he issues this quid pro quo, that it looks like Hunter called his dad at the request of Zlochevsky, who was saying, I'm under pressure from Ukrainian government investigations, right? Call your dad. So he calls his dad, and 5 days later, for the first time, all of a sudden we're talking about, well, we're leveraging this aid now. Can you name me a time in the history of the United States where we've ever leveraged aid on the condition of firing a single prosecutor.
Not to my knowledge.
It's never happened. I've asked people this over and over. I've researched extensively. Never happened. So this is unique. Can you name me a time when you've had a prominent official use tax dollars to force the firing of a prosecutor looking into their family?
Well, they're not. Well, okay. So hang on. I'm trying to find you this exact quote here in real time. So number one, we don't know that that's what happened. So
No, we
Hunter
do.
Biden was not being looked into. Wait a minute. Hunter Biden was not being looked into. Hunter Biden was not being looked into.
That's irrelevant. You don't know
that's
that
what
one.
you said.
And it's
well, number one, you need to prove it because it's your claim, Rob.
Okay, I can prove it.
You're the one
You ready?
claiming that Hunter Biden has been.
I can prove it. You ready? Would it have hurt Hunter Biden significantly if his company was no longer able to pay him because they were found guilty of some corruption charge?
Well, no, I don't know that because he was paid a lucrative amount of money.
You don't
right?
know if him getting $83,000 a month on average, that wasn't incentive for him to not want that company to be punished?
It's page 218, by the way, paragraph 20. I'll send you that.
Paragraph 20. Okay.
Yeah, page 218, paragraph.
And this is from
20.
Testimony and Impeachment George Kent.
Yeah, George Kent.
Who, by the way, lied under oath and should be charged, but neither here nor there.
So, a couple of things.
Where'd you send it? The Twitter DMs?
I thought you said Discord DMs. I'm sorry. It was Discord.
If you could... My computer's prone to overheating when I'm
I'll send it to you. That's fine. Twitter DM's better?
Yeah. And then you'll have to give me the page number and the paragraph again. And this is going to say this is going to be before December of 2015, where he says he
does not. No, to be very clear, he says he does not remember the timeline. He just says from his recollection it wasn't